So the story to what's going on inside of our country right now is that the Federal Reserve recently had their recent FOMC meeting, and where this is basically a meeting where they talk a lot about the plans, the current state of our country, where we're currently headed, and what they want to do in terms of the coming months or so, in terms of what they have planned. And Jerome Powell, who came out to speak out, long story short is that what he specifically mentioned is that he wants to keep all of his plans that he already had before coming into the meeting the same. Originally, they were going to try to do 2 rate cuts, and now, after the meeting, he is still trying to stay doing 2 rate cuts, as most of you guys may or may not know. But the biggest difference, I think, that the new information to really share is the fact that President Donald Trump has now recently come out to speak and respond to a lot of the things that Jerome Powell mentioned in his recent FOMC meeting, and the long story short is that he is basically attacking a lot of what was being said. He wants to essentially change a lot of different things that Jerome Powell does not want to change, and one of these changes is that he wants to do even more rate cuts, more than 2 rate cuts. So in today's episode and video, what I really want to talk about is really just giving the background story to what's happening inside of our country right now. We're going to share some statistics and numbers to really put things in very clear perspective about where we currently stand. I want to share some personal thoughts. We're going to cover a little bit about the labor market and just about a little bit of everything so you guys can get the big picture of what's going on inside of our country's economy right now at this time. So with that being said, let's just get right to this video. But as always, if you guys enjoy videos like this, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, because we will be talking about a lot of this stuff in future videos. So if that is something of interest, consider subscribing if you guys want to. And with that being said, let's get started. So to start by giving a little bit of a background story to what's happening inside of our country right now is that back during September of 2024, which is basically when they originally started to do rate cuts, they originally wanted to plan out so that they could do multiple rate cuts in 2025, which is the current year of the release of this video. However, after cutting rates for several months now since September of 2024, what they ended up realizing is that they simply put is that they just were not ready to continue cutting rates. So what they did is that they ended up adjusting their foresight to now only planning to do 2 rate cuts in 2025. The real golden question now that we're really trying to all speculate is when. When are these rate cuts actually going to physically happen? But we know one thing for sure is that of the recent last FOMC meeting, that meeting when they were going to potentially announce a rate cut, they did not announce a rate cut. So things are now kept the same. The background story to what's happening really is that the meeting during the FOMC meeting, when they announced that they wanted to keep everything the same, is that they will be holding interest rates steady at 4.5% for the second meeting in a row, after reducing it 3 times since last September. For perspective, maybe to just give a little bit of numbers, specific numbers to think about, is that at peak interest rates, things were rated at about 5.5%. They took it down by 0.5%, so went from 5.5% to 5%, down by 0.5%. Then it went down by 0.25% twice, making the current interest rate now stand as of March/April of 2025, so incoming into the next month as well, it currently is going to stand at 4.5%. And they see positive foresight according to what Jerome Powell has to express in his recent meeting. However, they do believe that time is needed to go by, which is why they ended up pausing rates instead of increasing them. Now, I'd love to hear your personal thoughts about maybe the rate cuts and whether or not you think they should have cut rates further, or whether they should have, maybe they made the right decision to keep rates the same, or maybe they should have even increased rates in order to deal with the inflation crisis situation. Of course, we're going to talk about them in a little bit, so definitely stay tuned watching to give some more information. But the idea is that there are other statistics to maybe share, which is really about the fact that the GDP forecast did drop from 2.1% to 1.7% core inflation. So core inflation, not including food and energy, is now projected to be about 2.8% instead of 2.1%. 5.5%. And the unemployment rate is, however, expected to increase from 4.3% to 4.4%. So the unemployment rate, that's one of the things we have to dive into details about in a little bit. But the idea is that with unemployment is that things are sadly expected to get worse, but it is fueled by a lot of people that it has to get worse in order to make the other areas of our economy get better. This one's a little bit more of a complicated topic matter, so we're going to touch on it a little bit, but feel free to share your personal thoughts about unemployment, interest rates, and everything like that. But to move on to maybe talking about the new information about Donald Trump and what he has come out to speak, is that President Donald Trump did recently come out to speak about what he feels about the recent Federal Reserve meeting, and he basically just attacked a lot of the things that were being said. He wants to do interest rate cuts even more than 2 times this year. He believes that we need to cut rates even more aggressively. He feels that it's just simply put not enough. And to him, it would help to ease inflation in combo with a lot of his other policies. It is a little bit of a weird situation, and this is the part where there's a little bit of a personal insight to it, is because we've made a lot of videos on this channel already talking about how tariffs are an inflationary policy, in the sense that doing tariffs, which is another policy that he preaches for, is expected to lead to even more inflation. Lowering interest rates is also expected to lead to increasing inflation as well. However, he has plans of a lot of other kinds of policies that he wants to do and implement in order to try to balance it out, so that maybe while it is true that inflation is still going to go up, maybe it just will not go up as bad within combo of a lot of his other policies. So it's a little bit of a strange topic, and it's a little bit hard to communicate and express it, but the idea really is that for President Donald Trump, he will do tariffs. Those are going to increase inflation. He's going to be lowering interest rates. Or at least he wants to lower interest rates. That's going to increase inflation as well. And so all of these policies, they're very, very inflationary. But to his eyes, and I'm not saying that this is the right way to look at things, what I am trying to say is that to the way that Donald Trump sees the situation is that he feels that although a lot of his policies are going to lead to greater inflation, he feels that it is necessary in order to avoid the potential recession or the worsening of a recession. Because I know there's some people that already feel that we are in a recession. There's some people that feel that a recession is going to come anytime now. And so regardless of your opinion about whether or not there's a recession, the foresight is that it's going to get worse before it gets better, which is the hard thing to share, but it's just the reality of what it is. This is, of course, a little bit of a prediction, so feel free to share your thoughts. But I know that Donald Trump, that's how he foresights it right now. That's why he's trying to create all of these inflationary policies. And there's just a lot of things that are happening inside of our economy. Now, moving on, we have to now talk a lot about the unemployment situation, because in spite of the fact that a lot of his policies, such as Trump's tariffs, Trump's desire to lower interest rates, are going to lead to a lot of inflationary situations, one of the things that I think that's really, really important to clarify is that the goal right now, at least for him, is not necessarily to do deflation, which is where prices go down, but what they really want to do instead is that they want to continue inflation, but just reduce inflation. In other words, they want prices to go up, but they just don't want prices to go up as fast. I know in an ideal world, a lot of us probably would prefer to have prices actually come down, but right now at this time, I feel like they feel that because there's a risk of a recession, they don't want prices to come completely down. They just want prices to stay the same or to just go up, but just a little bit up. Not too much up, so not the spiking inflation, but just to have it at least on a very, very controlled level. Now, how this is related to now unemployment is that because one of his less inflationary policies is that a lot of the things that he is going to do, it is expected, however, that unemployment, as we've already shared before, is expected to go up even further. And this is one of his policies that he's trying to hope to balance out with a lot of his other inflationary policies, in the sense that the long story short is that unemployment, if unemployment truly does go up, it is admittedly going to help combat inflation. What is the logic behind this is simply put is that if more people end up unemployed, and we hope not, let's just hope people don't end up unemployed, but if let's say people do end up unemployed, because that is the reality and the foresight of what's happening right now, is that it means that people have less money to spend. And if people have less money to spend, what ultimately ends up happening is that it means that there's less money that's going to flow into the economy, which means that businesses might ultimately start to struggle. And if businesses start to struggle, it means that prices will potentially come down. And the reason why potentially it will come down is because people have less money to physically spend. And this is really just logic. That's the logic really behind it, is that if people don't have as much money to put into the economy, then prices have to come down. There's a reason why during the stimulus check days when we had so much money pumping into the economy, prices went up. And the reason prices went up is because people had more money to spend. But in this situation, they want to flip and reverse that and make it so now people have less money to spend. And this is going to be something that will combat inflation. So it's just a really, really tricky situation right now, because the bottom line is that there's a lot of policies that we've mentioned already that will lead to more inflation, but there's a lot of other policies such as the unemployment rate, the unemployment rates increasing situation that's going to lead to less inflation. And they're trying to balance between things that will lead to inflation and things that will fight inflation, and trying to get the balance best of both worlds in order to combat and create the healthy economy that we all really, really want. Of course, we don't know what's ultimately going to happen, but we do know is that President Donald Trump did recently already come out to speak. So what ultimately happens in his, fight between Trump and between Jerome Powell, we just have to see in one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show. So that being said, that's pretty much what I really just wanted to share in today's video. So hopefully not too long or anything crazy. If you guys found that insightful, maybe comment any predictions, thoughts about what you think about the situation or what you think we should do right now. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.